Okay, just wanted to do a quick video update on the Himalayan situation, I guess. So 6 months ago, probably May time, April time, 2019, I sold the original black bike that I had that I'd done 17,000 miles on last year. So I use that bike for the guided trips that I do. So from Land's End to John O'Groats, I took it I think to Ireland, I can't remember now, and then across the States last year. So I did a 5,000 mile trip across America, east to west coast on that Himalayan, 17,000 miles. Not without issue, I guess. I had a couple of sets of head bearings. I think the top one or the bottom bearings seem to dry up pretty quick, whether it's because of a poor storm flap seal at the bottom, or just because they're bad bearings or undergrease from the factory, or just poor design. It's kind of one of those. Some people think it's because it's over torqued. I just think, it's just not the best design. But I guess it was a little niggle, and then I had the head gasket go. I think I had the head gasket go just before I started the America trip, but it kind of lasted until the end, and all it was a bit of an engine leak, a bit of an oil leak. So I had a few niggles with the bike, nothing major. But I think after 17,000 miles, I thought maybe I've had my fill of it. I've done everything I want to do with the bike. I've done a lot of off-roading, I've done a lot of road riding, I've done a big trip on it. I think I discovered everything I needed to know about the Himalayan to say, yeah, it's a good bike. It's not perfect, but then what bike is, and also the fact that, I think always for me, Royal Enfield sort of came out of nowhere and made a bike that, which in my eyes was a better travel package than a GS310, than a CRF 250L, than a V-Strom 250 from a Kawasaki 300. So all these big mainstream existing adventure bike producers were sort of trumped by an Indian built bike designed, I think it was designed partly in England. The Harris frame was designed in England, but I think the Himalayan was designed on the cusp of the opening of the Leicester branch, the Leicester research facility that Royal Enfield now have got fully operational. I think there's over 100 staff there. I have had a visit to it and seen what they're up to, and I mean it's a fantastic place where you can really see Royal Enfield progressing in what they make over the coming years. They've got a lot of ex-Triumph staff. They've got a lot of really keen, enthusiastic and knowledgeable designers and engineers and product builders. Where the Royal Enfield path goes to, who knows? I mean, I think the 650 Interceptors and Continentals have been great additions, real honest, earnest, classic style bikes that actually perform well and actually ride really well as well. I think I was always surprised how modern the Himalayan rode and how well it rode, the suspension quality and just the feel of it was a modern bike. It did look vintage, but it rode modern, and it's a bit the same with the Continental and the Interceptor. So I think where Royal Enfield go from here is really interesting, and they've certainly got the potential to develop into something very different to, say, Triumph or to BMW. To take a path that isn't high tech, high price, and every year introducing a higher tech version or a higher spec version, and adding the TFT screen and the electronic suspension and all that. They've got the option of going down a different road, which I think people are really, that's what they're after. They don't want to spend 12.5 grand, 13 grand on a Tiger 800 anymore. Well, some do, but I think it's pushed. They're those kind of bikes are pushing into a price bracket which is beyond a lot of people. So, a bigger engine Himalayan, a little bit more power, bigger single perhaps, that's still at an affordable price, I think could really set Royal Enfield off in a different direction and sort of capture a big slice of market share. But whether they go down that avenue or whether they chase BMW and Triumph and Honda and all those brands down the high-tech, high-price, high-value road remains to be seen. In the meantime, so that I'd sold the Himalayan, I was amazed I got £2,900 for a 17,000 mile bike, which was a bit tatty, I guess it was, it had been well used, well dropped. I won't say well ridden, badly ridden, but well used. But I saw it at 2.9, and I think that's a good sign of where the values are, second-hand values are with the Himalayan. There's no bikes, and I've seen one other bike less than £3,000, which, bear in mind, it's a £4,000 bike, and it's shedding only 25% of its value over a year or 2 years of its use. I think it's really good. And when you look at the values of the 310 GS, they've nosedives off a cliff. £5,300 retail value. Pick one of them up for 3.5 grand, almost delivery miles. So I think that sort of shows that there's strong money in a Himalayan. It's cheap money, but it's still safe putting your money in a Himalayan. So I'd sold mine, had my fussy out of it. I'd got a long-term test V-Strom 1000 Suzuki, which I was going to do all my trips on this year. Kitted it out, got the boom up panniers and the I've got Anarchy Wilds on it, and I got bar risers, and I got Scorpion exhaust. I got it all tarted up really for travel. I got the Land's End Johnny Groats trip I was going to do on it. I got a trip around Ireland. I was taking a group around Ireland on it, and also a trip back from Bulgaria. So shipping bikes out to Bulgaria and then doing a 2-week trip back from Bulgaria. All set for that. With the Suzuki, I did the first Land's End to Johnny Groats trip on it. And then Suzuki's new marketing manager recalled all their press bikes or test bikes. So all of a sudden that bike was whipped from under me, and I no longer had a bike for my tours this year. So that left me in a little bit of a predicament. I got a Husqvarna TR650, which I've had for a few years. Great bike, I really like it. I've always been wary of its longevity and its reliability, I guess, mainly because the previous owner had done a bit of chopping into its electrics and its suspension and things, and it always left me a little bit reluctant to take it further afield. Also, it's quite a complex engine, liquid cooled. It was an orphan bike. BMW built it when they owned Husqvarna, or Husqvarna built it when they were owned by BMW. That was a short-lived relationship of only 2 years, so it left this bike quickly discounted, quickly left out to pasture, which means getting parts for it or technical know-how is quite limited. So I didn't really want to use that bike as my main tour bike. I did actually go and use that on a Land's End Johnny Groats tour, and it blew a seal or something on the way back down, so I had oil coming out the airbox, and so that bike's still to be repaired. So I needed a main bike, and what did I come back to? A Himalayan. So I bought a second Himalayan, 700 miles on the clock for £3,500. I begrudgingly bought another Himalayan because I felt like I'd had my fussy out of it. Ideally, I wanted a Yamaha T7, but I couldn't get hold of one, and also the price. And I think that's what brought me back to the Himalayan. £3,500, which I had to finance because I didn't have £3,500. 90 quid a month. I got a brand new bike, or almost. It had its first service done on it. I put the old panniers back on. I bought a set. It didn't have pannier frames, so I bought pannier frames. I put the old panniers on that I used on last year's bike. For £3,500, I got a bike that was once again take me on all my trips this year. So the biggest trip, it was a shipping out to Bulgaria and riding the Himalayan back. So 3,000 miles riding with 12 other riders, some of them on GS 1200s, Africa Twins, CB500X, KTM 790 Adventures. So all bigger bikes. And that trip was Bulgaria, Serbia, Montenegro, Croatia, Bosnia, Slovenia, the Alps, Austria, Italy, Switzerland, and then France. So 3,000 miles in 2 weeks. The Himalayan performed as I knew it would, I guess. It was reliable, it was solid, it was comfortable, it was economical, it carried the load well. It was as slow as I imagined it would be. This obviously wasn't an issue in Bulgaria, Serbia, and all the other places. And the Croatian coast, you could flow along that quite nicely at the 65 miles an hour that the Himalayan will sit at. Over the Alps, again, it coped admirably in isolation with the climbs and the altitude and things that, it did well. Obviously, riding with GS 1200s, you just don't have the grunt to match those. When they can overtake a car going up a steep hill, up a pass, you can't get past it. So, and I think that's always a slight frustration with the Himalayan when you're riding it with other people. You just don't have that immediate punch of engine power. Like the 650 Husqvarna, wow, that thing would have flown up the Alps. It really would, and it shows that 650 actually is plenty. A well-ridden 650 will easily keep up with a 1200 GS or other bikes, as long as it's not about outright power. Anything else, and you can keep with anything on a 650. The Himalayan, it was interesting. On anything where outright power wasn't imperative, so on the twisty sections, which were maybe on a flatter surface, I could keep up or keep ahead with pretty much all the bikes on the trip, and that's mainly because I do a lot of riding, so I guess I've got my eye in for cornering and things. I'm quite a progressive rider. I like to ride as fast as I can, if I'm honest. But I've always said that the chassis and the suspension of the Himalayan just allow you to really push that bike and ride, I guess, the wheels off it. You really can chuck it into a corner. It will keep a good line. It's supple. The suspension deals with the undulations and the ripples you get with an alpine pass. And it just allows you to make the most of the power that the engine's making. So you're pretty much full throttle all the time, or trail braking or whatever. And then into the tight hairpins, you've got good balance and composure into those. So that the Himalayan chassis is a good leveler for its lack of power. So we got to England. The bike performed faultlessly. Took it trail riding the other day with a guy on a 701 Husqvarna, and again it excelled in claggy, rough, rutted, rocky, steep trails. Where he was struggling on the steep climbs when it was wet, and he got proper knobblies on his 701. He was struggling to get the power in because it was just spinning. The back end was spinning. I got the M260s on the Himalayan, sailed up, ploughed up, no problem. Well balanced. Again, the only limitation of the Himalayan off-road is its lack of ground clearance. Just a few times where you just need that bit of ground clearance. And also a bit more suspension trouble. But you're riding the Himalayan with a guy who's well ridden on a 701, and you're kind of keeping up with him, and also you're making lighter work of some of the tricky, difficult terrain. So the Himalayan, would you buy one? Well, I mean, it is a fantastic bike because it's so cheap but so good that it can be ridden back from Bulgaria and perform well. It performed well on that trip. It rides well. It just fits in well with the nature of adventure travel and touring. £3,500 bike, and it did everything that the £18,000 bikes did. They've got a guy there on a £20,000 GSA. Okay, he could have got there a little bit quicker. Okay, he had a bit more power. But the bike did the same thing as my Himalayan. And I think that's where the value of the Himalayan comes in. You get home, Himalayan, take it off-roading, and it performs not as well as a 701. And I'm not saying it's a 701 competitor, not by any means. But we were riding the same trails. And where he was having troubles, I was having troubles. And where he was having troubles, I wasn't having troubles. So it's just such a good all-encompassing bike. What I want to see Royal Enfield do is make it better. I want to see a commitment from them that they're listening to the customers, because I kind of feel that Royal Enfield have got their eye off the Himalayan now. They're focusing on other things. And I think the niggles with the head bearings and the weepy heads and things like that aren't good enough. That company, Royal Enfield, should be saying, hands up, issues with our bearings, issue with our weepy heads. Let's resolve this. Let's sort this out like they did from the BS3 to the BS4 model. I think they're burying the head in the sand a little bit. Also, the frame fracture issue. There's a lot of. They've got to be careful because there's a lot of posts and Facebook shares about frame snapping and things like that. There's been no official word from Royal Enfield. I mean, I know, looking at it objectively, you see those frame fractures. Most have happened in India with rental bikes. We don't know the rider, we don't know the history of the bike. We know so little about those incidents that to tar the entire bike with those half a dozen incidents is a futile, pointless waste of time. It's a good bike that's clearly, when pushed to its ultimate limit day after day in the Himalayas, will fracture. And to be fair, if you took a GS1200 or a 790 KTM or a CRF 250 and put it in the Himalayan riding conditions day in, day out with rental riders and how they ride, they would break. Like the Himalayan or any bike put in that environment, it's probably the toughest environment a bike can be put into. The fact that the heads are snapping on occasions is not great. And Royal Enfield need to be seen to be doing stuff, I think, whether it really is an issue or not, but they need to be seen to care, I think, and that's probably what's lacking from Royal Enfield. Built a great bike, now let's see that you care, and that could be even in the fact that they've barely offered any more accessories for it, or colour scheme changes, or anything. It's like, we've built a bike, let's move on to something else. And that's my only grudge with Royal Enfield, is that they've got a real good loyal fan base, they've got a good following. Overseas, I think they've got potential to really grow into a real solid brand that stands on alone as an alternative to the existing brands. And I think they're squandering that a little bit. I think they see us as a bit, they see the Himalayan as something. Almost, I think they're a little bit ashamed of the Himalayan, possibly. That's the impression I get, just because they want to see themselves going upwards, moving upwards, building something bigger. Yeah, well, that's fair enough. But at the minute, you've got a lot of passionate owners about it who own the Himalayan and talk very positive about the Himalayan. And I think they've really got to treasure that, because we are its future customers. When the new Himalayan comes out, whatever engine that happens to have, we are its potential future customers. But we want to see a company that really cares and is invested in us as we are in them. So The bike's fantastic. I think the company could do more, and I think that's how I feel with the bike. But if you're interested in a Himalayan, I would say test ride one. Again, as always, it's not for everyone. The lack of immediate power is going to put people off. The fact that you can't sit at 75 miles an hour, you can't overtake a big line of traffic off the throttle. You can't do that. People might respond to this email saying get a power booster or a Powertronic. Don't bother. I've tried that. Waste of time. You've got a 24.5 brake horsepower engine. Buy it. Leave it as it is, and don't try going in search of more power, because I don't think there's any to be found in this engine. So that's it. So second Himalayan, liked it as much as the first. Not going to be selling this one for any time soon. That's it. I just want to do an update, really. So I've got no conclusion, really. Over and out. Back to I've got painting. Joys of married life. Laters.